The coronavirus has crippled businesses across all industries and exposed fragilities in supply chains. And how these businesses respond could be the difference between surviving the outbreak or suffering further. Well, joining us now from Switzerland is Howard Yu, Professor of Management and Innovation at IMD Businesss School. It's great to have you, Howard. Amid these business closures, what should companies be doing right now to prepare for a situation that is expected to get worse before it gets better?
Yeah, so at IMD, we are basically filing in a lot of inquiry from our client because people are asking for advice as they are trying to combat with the current environment. What we are seeing is there are winner or company who are able to buffer themselves against this very disturbing time. Company who had invested a lot of technology, digital technology, managing their supply chain are faring much better than a lot of traditional manufacturer that are based on manual work a lot of the time. So my immediate recommendation is you have to set up some kind of SWAT team to really have a handle on the global situation and basically having a much more decentralized way of managing decision so that you really allow the organization to regain some form of agility over the long run.
And you've got a very unique firsthand look into the situation in Europe. Describe what it is right now.
Oh my God, in Switzerland is sort of the epicenter, right, in many ways. And just right next door, Italy is basically having this complete lockdown. And what's really interesting is the travel restriction doesn't really come along until last week. And I think this is going to be a recurring theme over in the US. If we want to understand how the US dynamic is going to play out, you can look at Switzerland and pan-European countries as well. So I think it is just a matter of time when US needs to really impose what is being toying around right now as domestic travel restriction.
What's the timeline? How long do you think these supply chains could be disrupted, Howard?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this is the situation really hit hard fairly rapidly. However, organizations that are much more agile, we see them being recovered in a rapidly massive scale in a very relatively short period of time. I'll give you a concrete example. If you're looking at the world's largest home appliance maker, like Haier, because historically they have digitized a lot of their work despite they are hardware manufacturer. They were able to essentially set up this they call micro enterprise around the world. So managers are really adjusting the supply chain, adjusting the customer demand on real-time basis. So what you're seeing at Haier, for instance, by the end of February, their supply chain is almost back to the previous level already. So it is doable in many ways, and we've seen organizations from insurance company that rely on human sales agent all the way to hardware manufacturer basically can recuperate their lost ground if they had digitized in the past within several weeks. Companies that don't do so probably take a much longer period of time.
Okay, so which companies, I want you to name a few if you can, Howard, are better poised to weather this storm than others, and which companies are the most vulnerable?
Yeah, so you already see companies such as Haier in China, basically headquarters in Qingdao, basically have recovered most of its lost ground. And you are looking at insurance company called Ping An in China, and they have operation across Southeast Asia as well. Some part of their business get hit hard, like the life insurance, but they also have a lot of the cloud-based solution. So that part of the business basically took off. So overall, they don't have much affected. And you can almost conjecture to more traditional company, where company relying a lot on manual processes and operating procedures are pretty much standard and traditional. Those are the ones who recover the hardest, particularly if an organization have optimized its supply chain using just-in-time management and Toyota production system. Those would be finding very, very hard to have that resilience right now.
Talk about the knock-on effects of the work-from-home policy in the United States, Howard, or certainly at least in New York. We do see that many professionals are mandated to avoid public places, right? There has been an official ban on that. What are the results of a work-from-home policy?
Yeah, I think it's going to accelerate this whole idea of work remote and reducing unnecessary face-to-face meeting. So whether it's business meeting, travel around the world, all of a sudden people discover, well, Zoom is not that bad. And in fact, one can be very creative to still retain that level of high performance despite we are not in the same room all the time. But I think also at the same time, professional knowledge workers, these are basically the more privileged population. We have to keep in mind the most vulnerable population of the economy. People who work at restaurants now don't have the paycheck, or even the low-income immigrant who may not be, too forthcoming in seeking professional health care, but they are in fact of the highest risk of exposure and potentially become the carrier of the disease as well.
If you are a worker at a restaurant, at a public place, Howard, what advice would you give to those workers who might be out of work right now? They're not making tips. Some of them perhaps don't even have health insurance. What is the best thing that they should be doing right now?
Well, I think this is where the organized movement needs to get pushed forward, because for the longest time, for whatever reason, we are not in a society to give a free handout, and this is exactly the time we challenge that long-held assumption. So for workers, before really we are struggling mightily, which we already have, we have to use online technologies to really instigate a sort of a movement to bring the awareness that, gig economy is great. We only reward people have self-determination is great. But in external shock like this, is really, we have to safeguard the society and provide certain kind of safety that unseen before.
Okay, Howard Yu, he's a professor of management and innovation at IMD Business School, joining us live from Switzerland.